good to be here in this moment. If you're not fully here yet, I invite you to enter the present moment with your attention instead of being absorbed in your thinking. And that simple thing is a shift in consciousness. How do I enter the present moment? Somebody is thinking right now. I can't get out of my head. An easy way is to direct your attention to sense perceptions, whatever you see and hear at this moment, and become a little bit more alert and go, oh, there's an alertness that rises and that heightens your sense perceptions, auditory, visual, and you suddenly become conscious of your surroundings. And you might notice that your once usual state, well, not yours because you're all advanced spiritual practitioners, but other people's usual state is they're hardly here. They're only present enough not to bump into furniture. Whatever is happening around them is peripheral to their attention. And a huge amount of their attention is continuously absorbed by thinking. And a lot of that is actually not terribly relevant to anything. But it pretends to be extremely important. Every thought has this seductive quality to it. It wants to draw you in. It has a pull like a magnet. And if you follow each thought, it'll take you, you're at the mercy of whatever arises in your mind, and you live like that. What a terrible existence. And you go drawn this way and that way. And then after a few years, you can see it in your face. Your face becomes very tense. And there's no longer a light shining through your eyes. Because all the consciousness is being devoured by the mind. And that's a dreadful state. It's been like this for a long, long time, many thousands of years. And that really, your entire sense of who you are, which is the most vital thing to know who you are. This is why the ancient dictum at the oracle in Delphi says, know yourself. And one of a very important meditation recommended by, for example, Ramana Maharshi and other teachers is the question, who am I? So your sense of who you are, when you are completely identified with every thought that comes into your head, a lot of it negative, by the way, because negative thoughts are more seductive than positive thoughts. You can think about an unpleasant person who did something to you yesterday, or said something, or failed to say something, or failed to do something, or should have done something. You can think about that for a long time, but you can't think that much about a beautiful sunset. You go, okay. So all the things that make life worth living actually involve less thinking. For joy to come into your life, a moment of joy, you go, ah. And you might not realize that in that moment there is a space that opens up inside you when you are not thinking but not falling asleep either. There's just a space of alertness. And that is really already a glimpse that is what in Zen they call satori, which is a flash of enlightenment, a flash, a momentary realization. Beauty, to recognize beauty anywhere, for a moment, the thinking mind needs to subside and a little bit of space opens up and you go and then you truly look. And you might not notice it, but for a few seconds, you're not thinking. If you're thinking, you're not really seeing. You can say, oh, that's a lovely flower. I wish I had that in my garden. But you're not really seeing it. To really see it, there needs to be a moment of alert presence in which thinking subsides. Oh, there it is. And that's how beauty reveals itself to you. And that's how joy arises. And that's how any feeling that is empathy with another human being. You cannot arrive at empathy or compassion through the judgmental mind. There needs to be a space within you that opens up and you can look at another human being without any conceptualization in your head. You look at them and you sense something in them that is deeper than their psychological makeup. But there is a presence. It can only be realized through the presence within you. So that is the dimension within you without which your life, you're not really truly alive. Or as Confucius would say, you're not fully human yet. If that dimension has not yet arisen in you, has not revealed itself to you, you are just on your, yes, of course, you are on your way. Everybody's on their way to becoming fully human, but you're not quite there yet. And some people are so deeply trapped in their minds that they live in a completely conceptualized universe where every human they meet, they immediately judge. And they take entire groups of humans and judge them. And so they dehumanize them, and this is how violence can happen. You total loss of empathy. You no longer know what you're doing. You no longer know what you're doing to other humans. We all know from recent events. Last week, people asked, how is it possible that humans can perpetrate such atrocities? Well, they are possessed by certain thoughts. In your head, they have taken over their minds. They're called religious thoughts, nothing to do with anything. It's not true religion, it's an ideology. It is a viral infection, so to speak, of your mind. Thoughts can act like viruses if you're not careful. They can take over completely. So a few groups of thoughts possess your entire mind and control everything is seen through that viral infection in your mind, to use that analogy. And it's an amazing thing. So these are extreme ways, but millions are suffering from that, not perhaps as an extreme way as the terrorists, but millions are experiencing symptoms of that kind, lesser symptoms of the same disease. So to know yourself for most people means it's an identification with certain images in their mind. First of all, there's the image, I am this physical body, and then what is it that people derive their sense of identity from, the sense of who they are. Usually it's their physical appearance and then the inner world of their thoughts, accompanied by emotions. And lots of very heavy emotions are created by dysfunctional thinking. We all know that, and in the past, before you spiritually awakened, you experienced that also. So there is a vast dimension in yourself that is, now, let's call it the transcendent dimension of who you are. There where the person or the personality that you usually identify with, that usually gives you your sense of self, which consists of self-talk, basically. The habitual self-talk in the head explains to you who you are. And it takes on board what others tell you who you are. It starts with what your mother might have told you who you are, and your siblings and parents and your environment and your culture tells you who you are. And this is absorbed by the mind, and then it becomes your story. And then that becomes the foundation for your sense of identity. This is where you derive your sense of self from. So it's a conceptualized, because thoughts are concepts, a conceptualized sense of self. It's not, and then it attempts to make itself feel a little better by adding more concepts to your mind. They might be possessions. Maybe if I get more possessions, I can feel better about myself. Maybe if I find the right person who is going to make me happy, then my life will be fine. But these are all really concepts. Even the big house or the big car gets translated into a concept in your mind, and then you identify with it, and it becomes part of the sense of me. But always uneasy and never enough. And never satisfied for very long. And always things seem to go wrong. The Buddha already recognized that. He said, wherever you go and whatever you do, you'll find dukkha, which is translated traditionally as suffering, but can also be translated as misery or unhappiness or unsatisfactoriness. So on that level, you can never be satisfied for very long. If you don't know who you are, but you're trying to enhance that mind-made sense of self. So the most important dimension, one could say you only know one half of yourself, and that half is who you are on the level of form, physical form and the psychological form of me. And that's how most people live their lives, and they don't know what they are missing. Now, spiritual people have the idea that there is such a thing as a state of enlightenment that can be reached at some point. Many Buddhists believe that a few more incarnations are definitely needed, but then perhaps I will eventually get there. So it is made into some idea in the head that I need to reach, and not realizing that that dimension, which we could call the spiritual dimension, which we could call the transcendent dimension, or which we could call who you really are, that is always already there. That is already present here and now. And why do some people not know it? Because they are continuously, completely overlooking it. Because the movement of thought plus the emotions that go with it has an enormous seductive quality, that it hypnotizes you into continuously identifying with form that arises. And every thought is a thought form, and every emotion that arises is an emotional, it's not a physical form, but it's an energy formation. Every thought is an energy formation, and every emotion is an energy formation. You cannot see it, but you can feel it, and it affects the body in certain ways. So those things continuously absorb your attention, and there's something very vital that you overlook, and that is something deeper without which you couldn't even think. There would be no thought, there would be no sense perception. So what you then overlook is the presence, the formless presence of consciousness itself, which is always there. If you stop thinking for 3 seconds, there it is. Where? Because if you look for it as if you could say, there it is, you'll never find it. So if you look for enlightenment as if it could be something that arises and you can say, there it is, and now I have it, then you will never find it, because that's not how you cannot grasp it. Now let's bring this to what really matters right now. Can you sense that apart from any thoughts that may be going through your head right now, hopefully not many, maybe none, there is also in you the dimension of simple, formless presence. To get you there, I could ask you the question, what does it really feel like to be you right now? What is that feeling of, what does it feel like to be you? Now, when I say you, I don't mean your personal history. You don't have to remember that for this practice. What does it, something deeper that has never left you, that's always been there and always will be there, what does it feel like? Can you sense the presence that you are that has nothing to do with your personal history at all? There is simply the light of presence. And meditation, of course, is supposed to get you there, but you can, at any moment, you can be aware of it. How? Not by making it an object of your attention. That doesn't work. Because that awareness or that consciousness that is the essence of who you are, when you're looking for it and you go, okay, I'm looking for that great experience, the alertness behind the looking is it. So if you're looking for yourself, if you're looking for the enlightened version of yourself at some future moment, you are missing that the very consciousness that becomes the looking, if you could catch it at a slightly earlier stage, where it's just pure consciousness, is it already. So if you can know yourself as consciousness, as the presence, then you realize the hidden dimension of life, or the transcendent dimension. I sometimes call that the other half. It's not only a way of speaking. It's not, you can't divide life into two halves. But temporarily, just to help us approach this, to see for a moment that your life consists of the life of form, physical form, mental form, but also of inner presence. In the same way, I could use an analogy of this room. If you wanted to investigate what is the essence of this room here, and you start looking at the people in it, maybe in this analogy, the people are the thoughts in your mind, and then you're looking at the furniture and the walls and the ceiling and everything. Okay, I'm trying to get to the essence of this room. And then you can even analyze with microscopes. Maybe it's hidden in the carpet. Maybe with a telescope. Maybe if I get my binoculars, maybe it's on that wall somewhere. And you miss the one thing that pervades the entire room, which is the space of this room. So if you could pay attention to the space of this room, you would get the essence. Without the space, the room means nothing. It couldn't even exist. And we're using an analogy here that there is a spaciousness within you that is continuously missed because you're so interested in the furniture in your head. And for many people, their mind is crammed full with furniture. You can't even move anymore. And here comes another thought, and then here comes this. No space, and the loss of spaciousness is the most terrible loss in life, because then joy, real joy, cannot arise anymore. Love, which is a sense of true connectedness with another, that all arises from a little bit of spaciousness inside you. Sometimes people become spacious for 3 seconds when they see a dog. That's why I have this book about dogs and cats. You see a dog and you look at into the eyes of a dog, and you go, it feels good. People love dogs, except people who don't, but most people most people seem to love dogs, and they are drawn to them because for a moment it frees you from your mind, because you know that the dog has no judgments about you. It has neither good, it just looks at you and the tail wags. And for a moment it can free you of your mind for a few seconds, and that's why it feels so good to look at the dog and say, oh, lovely dog. And for a moment there's just a connectedness. With humans, much more difficult. Because the moment you meet another human, there's judgments, and you can sense that, except those humans who are no longer dominated by their mind, and they can meet you in that openness of presence. And they just look, and you know they're not judging you. But this means those humans who don't judge you, they haven't fallen back to the level of consciousness of the dog. The dog, in a way, is in that beautiful state of connectedness with being, because the dog has not yet been totally seduced by thinking. But for us, we cannot go back. We have to go forward. We have to rise above thinking, not fall below thinking. So here, the arising of presence is an evolutionary leap that humanity is now, we are beginning to enter this evolutionary shift where humans reach a new stage in evolution, which is a complete inner change where thinking still operates. It's transcended, which means it isn't left behind completely. It is transcended so that you are no longer a thought-based entity, you are a presence-based entity. So you're no longer dominated by thought, and it's only then that your thinking can actually be used in a powerful and constructive way. It's a wonderful tool to use your mind positively, to create. It's an instrument, a miraculous instrument. It only becomes insane when it takes you over and there's no space of awareness anymore. So if you then derive your sense of identity from the presence within you, and more you become comfortable with spaces of not thinking. Oh, you can walk from one building to another, or from the building to your car, and just be in that state of alert presence. It's beautiful. You see beauty everywhere. You don't need to label everything anymore. That compulsion to label everything is the egoic mind. It doesn't operate anymore, and that's an enormous burden falls away when you can go through life. You don't need to judge everything. There is a deeper knowing there that is not conceptual. And so one of the great spiritual practices is a very simple one, and that is practice not labeling or interpreting what you are perceiving. And that you can practice anywhere, wherever you are. I always recommend do it when you're waiting for something somewhere, because you'll be amazed how much time we spend waiting for things. Waiting at the traffic light, waiting at the checkout counter, waiting at the airport, waiting. Many people are waiting their entire lives because they're waiting to start living. And then they reach 70 and say, was that it? I'm still waiting. I haven't started living yet. Awful. So use waiting instead of waiting. Just bring an alertness, invite that state of alertness in, and you go, oh, why? There's nothing wrong with waiting, because you always either stand, sit, or lie somewhere. Does it really matter where you stand, sit, or lie? But But the mind says, I shouldn't be waiting at this checkout counter. Why is this person so inefficient? Why is he talking to this customer? She shouldn't be talking to him. She should be doing her job. And you can discover that in yourself and suddenly say, I choose something different.
He's pretty good at it.
The discovery of your mind, what your mind is doing to you, is an enormous step forward in evolutionary terms.
Yeah.
The discovery of how your mind functions. I thought they'd shut me off. They will in a minute. It implies there is already that awareness arising in you, where you become aware of what your mind is doing. It's an enormous thing. So the shift then, you can use waiting periods instead of complaining, just being present. Feel the presence that you are, the alertness. And at that moment, you become a spiritual master. Because all that differentiates a person who is not yet awake from a spiritual master is that the spiritual master can be in the state of presence, which is complete alignment with the present moment without complaining about anything. Just is. That's the Zen master. He goes, this is what is. What are you complaining about? And this is why there was a Zen master who would never answer any questions. All he would ever do when people asked him questions about the meaning of Zen was he would raise his finger and look at you. Can you explain the meaning of Zen, please? Did you hear what I said? Did you hear my question? He's simply teaching presence. Alert presence. That's Zen, nothing else. And people spend years in Zen monasteries and they still don't get it. Because they think, I need to understand something. The Course in Miracles says, your understanding is not a powerful contribution to the truth. Now, the miracle is when you give up the need to understand yourself, my life, I need to figure out my life. What is your life? It's a mental construct. So you're trying to figure out a mental construct that you call my life, and it's very complex. I need to figure out what it's all about, where am I going, what am I doing? Why not give up the need to understand and just invite presence in? And then it looks for a moment, from the point of view of the mind, as if you didn't know anything anymore. And you don't, not conceptually. So you voluntarily enter that state of not knowing, and then you realize, out of that state of not knowing, a deeper knowing arises, and a deeper sense of connectedness with life, and a deeper sense of connectedness with other humans and all life forms. And that is the awakening and the shift in consciousness. And now I'm handing this chair over to Deepak.
Wonderful. Beautiful. Thank you. I'll call you back.
I'm going to fix your microphone right now.